Or live. Wendy, thanks for joining me today. I know you're going to go back and forth on video. It is good to see you. And while Brent's out, we've got room for some guest hosts to come through and deal with my misery of reading a script. Um, Thanks for laughing. Craig didn't laugh. Craig,
I'll laugh because I understand. It's back and forth, right? The script is fun, but at the same time, it's limiting.
it has not yet been fun. Like the script might be fun. Me reading the script has not yet been
It's
fun.
fun for us
Yeah.
to watch you try.
Yeah, well, that's it, and that's what I'm doing. I'm trying, and it highlights. So there are a couple of things that I've learned from it. Number one, you can kind of lay out specific beats to hit on and have them up on a screen as a reminder, and not have it take away from the authenticity. And that's historically what's kind of been my blind spot when it comes to the script side of things. I think if it's script, now I got to read the thing and it's going to feel super awkward and all of that kind of stuff. And it feels super awkward, but I can add in different points to it
Mhm.
and I can start to figure out, okay, well, how do I make this script thing work for me so that we keep moving through the pieces. The other thing that the first couple of times that I was doing it, I lost track of what I was reading. So I would read, but not remember. I could read, but have no
Mhm.
recall. And that
Mhm.
was super interesting to have happen. So now I've kind of solved for that in my own way to yeah, it'll still happen if I end up doing multiple things while also reading, but if I can do the read and focus on kind of the recall piece, then I feel like we can have a little bit better conversation. But yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. I don't know that I'll incorporate it into the other stuff that I do, uh, just because I kind of like to just go. Like it's, ooh, I heard this and people are talking about that. And I think I can help them with a little bit of perspective or a tool that might work. Anyway.
So yesterday you said you were a bullet point person. Do you have your bullet points that you hit, or
No.
is it just truly all
I mean,
ad
I
lib?
I know what they are. Like I know I know what they are. Like I've got I know what my arc is going to end up being, which ends up being
Mhm.
those bullet points. And kind of broadly speaking, like what do I there's a um so you'll hear me say this. There are things that are said, there are things that are heard, there are things that are remembered, and very rarely are all three of those the same. Well, I know going in what do I want to say? What do I expect people will hear? And what do I want folks to remember when I'm before I hit record? Uh, that all comes from a call plan format, which was kind of funny to go through some of this. Yesterday, if you missed the show, we went through and had a number of the behavioral assessments that are out there that folks will run prior to pulling together leadership teams inside organizations or prior to hiring people inside organizations. You'll hear these things like Myers-Briggs or DISC or True Colors or uh, CVI or Berkman. They're all out there and they've been out there for a while. And you have a bunch of people who are certified in these things and they go out there and they go inside an organization and they give everybody the assessment. In the sales space, OMG is one operation. I think it's operations management group. Anyway, there are all these different assessments they'll put out there. And one of the reasons why I struggle with the assessments is I had to take an assessment when I went for my first sales role ever inside at United Parcel Service, and I was basically told I shouldn't go into sales. It's not the right space for me. I just don't have the right stuff. Fast forward 30 some odd years later, and I've built a career out of
And that's what
doing
you do.
this. Like, and it's so there are biases that will come up through it. And yesterday, I made a comment about diversity and inclusion in the context here. So we talk about the importance of diversity and we talk about the importance of inclusion, yet we use these tools to create segmentation.
Mhm.
And it's kind of interesting. And Jen rolled her eyes when she heard that. She's like, you really got to stop. You just there's certain things you don't have to say, even though they're in your head. And so doing that kind of thing is kind of interesting as you go through it. There's you can organize people into certain areas, and I also thought early on with those that when you do it, that's you, and you don't change. And the reality is you do change over
You
time.
do change.
You
Yeah.
change in context, and you change in experience, and you change in all of the different things, and you're constantly changing. So on a positive note, going through and doing that kind of stuff, you know some things, and then you identify certain things like blind spots. And yesterday, the laughing out loud things that were happening inside my house were all related to many of my um both knowns and unknowns when it comes to certain things. And one of my blind spots, and we shared these in the Slack channel. So if you're listening to this, you are interested in joining on the Slack channel, go to livewithbrentandmike.com, register there, and then we'll get you into the Slack channel and continue the conversation. So it was a fun thing to do. If you didn't see it, go watch it was only the last 10 minutes of the show yesterday, if that. And we had a little bit of fun. So you did the same thing though. You went in, and what was your
And
experience when you went through, did your kind of version of the prompts and put some things in place? What was your experience with it?
Myers-Briggs, I'll go with that one. That one's probably the most common that people know. And I find myself as an INTJ, right? And an
Yeah,
introvert.
sure.
However, things change, right?
Yeah,
And sure enough, and the way that you had set it up was it just took the information of knowing you. So you didn't
yeah,
have to actually go take all of these assessments, which was
right.
really great because of course it's very time consuming and also nuanced because especially if you know how to take assessments, you can, skew it. So just having the AI just view it and say, hey, based off of what you know about
Yeah,
me, throw me into all these categories.
yeah.
And it put me as an ENTJ externally
Mm,
and a strong INTJ internal processing.
that's cool.
And
Yeah,
I thought, that's actually pretty accurate because I will, collaborate with people. But when it comes down to the deep thinking, I want my space. I want my, quiet zone, right, to be able to do that. Um, the other one was the colors, right? The true colors I had looked at before and was like way green. And now I'm gold green. And then I laughed about the bullet points that, it came up for you because I'm like, oh, yeah, I tell my husband that all the time. I don't want a story. I don't want an arc. I don't want a history. I
right.
just want the bullet points. Just get to the point. So I need to go look at disc. That was the first time I've really looked at that one.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah,
so mine was primary dominance with
yeah,
consciousness, whatever.
yeah.
It's early. Um, Operates with clarity and direction first and then enforces structure, which I guess is pretty accurate. So I really enjoyed that. For those of you who want to try it and are curious but don't want to spend time taking all the tests, use your AI. It's
Yeah.
great.
It,
So,
it's I think this is one of those really cool ways to use it. And it started with a view of, hey, do these cross over? And I still haven't gotten to like, typically D's are blue as an example. And I don't even know
okay.
what blue is, but like that was part of the question that we're kind of going through. And then it evolved. And that's the cool thing about playing with
Mhm.
these tools. You just going in and saying, hey, I've got this thing. I don't really know exactly how I want to use it. I'm going to go ahead and try a couple of different things. And when I try a couple of different things, I put some inputs in, let it do its thing. I get some outputs. Ooh, I kind of like that. I want to do more of it. That kind of missed. I'd like to understand why it missed. I didn't even go through the process of asking specific questions around what part of what I've communicated historically made you think this. Now, the other thing I did that wasn't part of yesterday's show, but I did it in on X is I shared just kind of the high level notes of what ChatGPT pushed back to me, and then
Okay.
said, um, Grok, what do you think? What was your thing? And then Grok went through and did its assessment based on what was in that thread. And then I actually no, I said do it based on everything that I sent out. And what I realized is there's some things that I do differently on Twitter or on X that are from things that are different in the way that I engage there than how I engage in the video content that we're creating. Meaning, I'm a bit more loose at when it comes to my perspective and energy around things like the New York Jets or the New York Islanders or and like these teams that I'm into,
Something you're
that kind
passionate
of stuff.
about.
And there's a lot of golf stuff, and there's just more of that kind of stuff where I don't put any of that into ChatGPT to do show notes on the podcast as an example, right? So it
Mhm.
doesn't have all of, it has a different view. So as much as I like to talk about not having a mask when I'm out working, where I've had to kind of put a mask on in the past to kind of tone down whatever the thing is that I where I don't want to be um, as some people in my family might say, extra. I want to tone down the extra stuff that comes through in kind of, and I've never really thought about it until I had a conversation with a guy who is a chief information security, an anonymous CISO out in the world. So he's got one of these burner accounts where he does chief information security stuff
Mhm.
out there in the world. And he talked about masking in the context of neurodivergency and in the workplace and in this kind of environment to help get information out in the marketplace. So there are different times where you play different roles. So for me, one of the different roles I play when I speak is extrovert, high energy, out, like really have to kind of amp it up, and then I go into my hotel room and crash. I like just completely like pass out. My resting heart rate will be in the mid to low 40s. Like it's just
Oh, really
exhausting.
crash.
Oh yeah, like literally just crash. Like that's so anyhow, if you haven't go back and watch yesterday, you can fast forward all the way to the last 10 minutes and see this kind of piece. And if you want to go do it on your own, go do it. If you want to do it with a little bit of help, come join us in the Slack channel. We'll help out and get things going along. So, Wendy, thanks for doing this on your break.
Yeah, happy to be here. Spring break. It's early for us compared to most, I think. And we're right there with you from Texas to Arizona because today's high is a breaking high of 92. So hence the crazy sounding voice today. Sorry about that. But
It was
it's
yeah,
gonna be on
it
hot.
got, I don't know if we broke 100 yesterday or not, but if we did, it was the earliest that we've, since we've been tracking this kind of stuff, that we've
Mhm.
broken 100. I can tell you it was hot. And I um it was hot. I had to put on my big old straw hat when I was walking the golf course yesterday, and it was hot. Are you ready? You ready to do this?
Yeah, let's
So
do it. Let me
your
pull it
spring break,
in.
do you do 1 week or 2 weeks?
We do one. So we do, this is our spring break, but then the kids get out right before Memorial Day in May.
Okay. Yep.
So our year's a little shorter than most, and then
Yeah.
they go back mid-August. So
Got it. Yeah.
it's a little early, but it's nice because it's not at the same time everybody else's is. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people's are next week. So we have that little bit of break, and then everyone else gets off and we go back. So it's nice for scheduling things.
Yeah. In Arizona, we do 2 weeks. And so there's a spring break and a fall break. And uh, and it's a modified year-round school year. So there's a
Oh,
shorter break in the summer. Anyhow, now the kids aren't in the house anymore, so it's not really that big of a deal, other than it just changes traffic around here and the number of people that you have, kind of walking around or being around the neighborhood. All right, well, let's do
yeah.
this. I am gonna stick this one right over here. I'm gonna do what I can to kind of move through the scenes. And
Okay.
what do we agree? You're gonna be Sam.
Yes.
So yesterday, the thing that tripped both Craig and I up a little bit is uh reading the script for, like, I'm Alex and no, I'm Mike. So we'll see. Those things will kind of come up through here. If you're new to watching this, what we do is the news brief we get out of either Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, or Claude. And we kind of alternate who is the executive producer just to test a couple of different things. And then we script out a number of stories, and you'll see there'll be 5 different stories that we get in, and these are the 5 areas of focus that we focus on each day on Monday through Thursday when we do this live. And Wendy is the co-host with me today, so we'll get things moving along. All right, let's see. I've got to move my screen around as I do this. There we go. It's like the perfect size of, hey, how can I see the scenes, see the thing, and then get this thing moving along? All right. Good morning, learning leaders. I am Mike. I am caffeinated, automated, and ready to upskill the nation.
And I'm Wendy. I'm currently wondering if, excuse me, I'm currently wondering if the AI can be programmed to feel the existential dread of a Monday morning on a Thursday.
It is Thursday, March 19th, 2026, and the news is moving faster than Gen Zers' attention span on a compliance module. Let's dive into the lead. Our top story, tech giant Palantir has partnered with Motor to build an AI powered mortgage platform. They're using agentic AI to turn complex lending guidelines into auditable rules.
Finally, now when a family gets denied a home loan, they don't have to deal with the human sympathy. They get the cold, calculated no from a machine that thinks in ones and zeros and cold, hard rejection.
But when you think of the L&D implications, this is a massive shift for the finance sector. If AI is handling the how-to of mortgages, our training needs need to pivot to why to.
Exactly. Why would anyone be a mortgage officer? Also, if story 1 isn't inherently L&D, here's my take. Since robots are now buying houses, I've started a new course. Interior design for Roomba-based households. Lesson 1: stop putting shag rugs near the stairs. It's a death trap for your smart home.
Very good. Any takeaways from the first story? Any thoughts on the first story?
You know, uh from a I guess it's expected to some degree, a mortgage platform. And it doesn't really go into details on what that means,
Yeah.
right? Because to some degree, we already have AI when it comes to lending, right? I mean, you go through, you put in your application,
Yeah.
whether it's a credit card or something else, maybe not such a big purchase as a mortgage, but it will come back and say, no, you've been denied or you've been accepted, right? Go log in, here's your money. Um, but so I don't think that's the biggest thing now from a mortgage perspective and underwriting and all of that kind of stuff, right? Maybe they're just doing pre-screenings, but I'd have to go actually look at the story to see what that entails.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's the um uh, I guess I've got to spend more time understanding what Palantir's specific capabilities are, because I kind of organize them around more of the uh robotic type stuff. But so this is gonna the thing this is gonna prompt me to is, okay, what are they doing, and what other industries are they getting involved in? uh, One of the things that I like about stories like this is when it highlights communicating in the context of ones and zeros, and being a bit robotic, and now understanding, or seeing more and more why I appreciate communicating with the AI tools. That's the that is the there's a you just you kind of you remove the emotion out of it, especially. So we were
Yeah.
talking about the, like, disc is a really good example of this. So that whole um demanding, dominant, direct kind of thing. It's, look, we've got a job to get done, we want to work through it, let's go through and take care of it and then move on to the next. you know Impact over feelings kind of stuff. The challenge
Yeah.
is, you still have the feelings thing will get in the way if you're not aware of those. So kind of interesting. I'm hoping that with a lot of this stuff, this is actually going to tighten up things like communication, and um and people will become more clear as they go through it. Ready to move to story 2?
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, in Resistance is Futile news, Workday has officially made Sonnet its primary AI interface. It's not a search bar anymore, Mike. It's a conversational agent.
This is huge. You don't find your training anymore. You discuss your career path with an entity that knows your payroll, your performance reviews, and probably your favorite lunch order.
It's basically Siri for your salary. L&D professionals, it's your content. If your content isn't conversational ready, it's effectively invisible. If a learner can't ask the AI, how do I deal with Mike's morning energy, and get a link to a conflict resolution video, you've failed.
Yeah, this is one of those. Any thoughts on it? Just
Well, at first it's Workday, right?
yeah.
So, okay, that's one thing. And Workday essentially is the HRIS, right? It's the HR information system. So, yes, it's got all of that information. It's got your performance, it's got, hierarchies and everything else in it. What they don't talk about from an L&D perspective is, okay, sure, you may have that content, but do you have it tagged correctly in order to feed that up, right? And that's what is the missing line here for me, is that it's not so much of do you have the training, because I'm sure you do. It's do you have it tagged correctly. Um, that's really going to be the catch here.
Well, and I mean, how many? If you look in the mirror as a leader, or look in the mirror as a person who's gone through a performance review process, how effective has that process been? Like, what kind of information did you gather? Were you just going through the motions? Were people doing things because they didn't want to get in the way of a potential promotion, or were they doing things because
Mhm.
they wanted to create an obstacle? Like, there's so many different things that happen when the human is in the loop creating the data.
Mhm.
Again, not to continue to go back to yesterday, but if you and one of Wendy's comments a little bit earlier today, you can, if you know how to take assessments, you can present yourself however you want to present yourself.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things for me was demands autonomy. So, okay, now all of a sudden I'm not a team player. No, I'm a
Yeah.
very good team player when I'm going into deep work and working through something that is in me, and I'm not really looking for help and I'm not looking for collaboration, I don't want that stuff forced upon me. So,
Right.
yes, I demand autonomy and value the team, but that doesn't come up in that assessment depending on how
Yeah.
the assessment is instrumented, right? It's
Yeah.
kinda it's interesting stuff. I what I'm one of the other takeaways for me on this one is when you're out there and you're creating this experience for people, and we talk about content delivered in workflow. So being able to deliver content in the flow of work so that you enable and empower people to improve at the work that they're doing. When you do that kind of stuff in that kind of environment, one of the questions that we've got to ask as we go through this experience piece and testing is, am I creating unnecessary friction for the person on the other end? Because if I'm creating unnecessary friction for the person on the other end, they're going to go find the path of least resistance. You're going to go find another area to go,
Yeah.
and that's where things can get a little bit thorny. So, and one of the cool pieces is you've got so much data now. How are you going to use it?
Right. And the metadata behind all of it, right, is a big deal. Here's a little additional information on the Workday Sauna thing. From the article itself, Sonnet Expert or Enterprise extends this approach beyond Workday. Integrations with tools such as Slack, Google Workspace, and ServiceNow allow work to be carried out across systems from a single integration, posting Workday more firmly within the flow of work rather than as a destination system. So,
Hmm,
thank you for that tie-in, Mike. Uh,
very cool.
so, pull that up. But, I think that that's the key integration, right? But and it talked about, our little spiel talked about normal talk, right? So we could say chat prompting versus vibe coding, right? Kind of
Uh,
concept of the differences between the two types of how you speak to a system.
Yeah.
And if their AI is sophisticated enough, again, it all comes back to the data behind it, right? The metadata behind it. Because if all you've got is a description and a title, it may not know that how to deal with Mike's energy is actually a, a more conversation type conflict resolution rather than hype.
Yeah. There you go. Awesome. All right, story number 3. And I know the script doesn't say to tell us that this is story number 3, but for those playing along at home, here we are. We are story number 3. Let's talk about the relational teaching clock. New research shows adult learners need co-regulation and reflexive responsivity. We need to treat our learners like humans.
Treating people like humans. What a radical 20th century concept.
Wendy, the science says if the learner feels stressed the science says if the learner feels stressed, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that actually learns, goes dark.
So, the takeaway for our audience is if your e learning looks like a legal disclaimer and sounds like a blender full of buzzwords, you aren't teaching. You're just committing biological data. What is that? Erasure? Stop hurting big brains, people. Okay, that right there. See, that'll get you. That'll get you right there. What is that word?
The tongue
Oh my
twisters on
gosh.
this, the tongue twisters on this really drive me nuts. It's multiple syllables and then words that I've just not used before where now yeah, and they're English. Like it's English language.
Yeah.
At least I think it's English language. This one, data erasure. And you're like, is it an eraser? Is it, are we erasing? Like, what are we doing
Yeah.
there?
We add an extra A.
The joys of script reading. So,
I
any
mean,
comments on that one?
so what's the punchline is, if it's too compliancy, people will tune it out, right? But we know that, and we know that from a lot of, data from back end, right, responses on, compliance courses that say, "Oh, you're holding me accountable for something," They don't really necessarily scrutinize the design of the course,
Yep.
right? They're scrutinizing the policy, the legalese, right? Not how it was designed. So, I think it's both, right? The legal disclaimers, some businesses, they have to have a legal disclaimer before you start the content, period. There's no question about it.
Yep.
So you can't get away from it, but most people don't read it anymore. They just click next, right? And they're still going to be legally responsible for that content, but um they're not really reading it. So I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth on that one. I get the concept. I just don't know how actual applicable it is today.
Yesterday I ran into an instance where I got an alert on my LinkedIn account, and the alert was related to running something triggered where it said that I was running some kind of automation, and it talks about how important the it is to make sure the content is coming from real people and all of that other kind of stuff. Well, anyhow.
Mhm.
I don't have any automation built in. So, and I do know a couple of different people at LinkedIn who I reached out to just ask for help. And what I'd like to know from LinkedIn is
Mhm.
what was it that triggered it? Because I don't have any automation in. I don't have anything. The only plugin that I've got turned on where it has access to my account is Restream, so that we can push it live on LinkedIn when I do a different show, because we're not pushing this one live on LinkedIn anymore. Anyhow, LinkedIn's bot or whoever response on it publicly was, well, we don't have that data. We can't tell you. Well, I can tell, and I should have grabbed the screenshots all the way through. But one of the screenshots, the things that I had to do to have to reactivate my account was push a button that says I will comply or something like that. And
Mhm.
I'm like, why will comply with what? Like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
As you go deeper into it, there wasn't. It was basically, hey, you know what? Sometimes things happen, and we want to know that you're going to comply. And basically, what they're saying is that there's some browser extensions that could create this kind of a thing. Now, I don't have any browser extensions on my that I know of, and that I could see when I was going back through and looking at some of my security settings, just trying to figure out what was the trigger. So I'm hoping to hear back from them on what the thing was. But the crazy part about the will comply is it was so ambiguous around what is. And there's one of my other challenges based on my stuff from yesterday does not deal
What
well
does
with
that
ambiguity.
mean?
Yeah. So, and I do well with ambiguity when it's necessary. Like when we're trying to figure it out, we're building from the beginning. When it is unnecessary, like in this
Mhm.
instance, I have no patience for ambiguity because we need to communicate with clarity if we want to see people move forward.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it kind of gets into this whole piece where as we go through the kind of the wah Charlie Brown's teacher type stuff, realize that hey, there's some stuff that has to get through, and if you're creating more unnecessary friction that's getting in the way of it getting through, your people are noticing, even if you aren't.
Yeah.
And um, so on to the industry specific one. And yep, for those of you who've been paying attention, you don't have to listen to Brent's music in the background. And this is my least favorite music clip that he has, but I know how much he appreciates it, so we'll keep that thing moving along. A massive compliance alert for the real estate and finance sectors. As of today, March 19th, the new FinCEN reporting requirements for all cash residential sales are officially active.
That's right. If you haven't trained your agents on how to spot suspicious cash heavy Larry, you're in trouble.
This is where L&D becomes the front line of defense. These aren't just nice to know updates, they are stay out of federal prison updates. Make sure your tracking is 100% accurate today, or your next learning management system might be the prison library.
This really doesn't talk about what that means. Real estate and finance,
Yeah.
right? So suspicious cash heavy Larry doesn't really tell us anything. Um
I think the tool in here that I would imagine, or what I think happened is the, and it is interesting to watch how it comes together, but we're working on a thread. The producer's got a thread today where today it's
mhm.
about mortgage, housing, humans, risk, that kind of stuff.
Back to housing and real estate.
And
Yeah.
it's like the I say the producer went through and said, "Ooh, how can I take this Thomson Reuters publication that actually went live on December 10th, 2025, which is a breakdown in the way that the
Mhm.
bot is supposed to work. The bot's only supposed to work on content created in the last 72 hours. So this is an older article talking about impact in 2026. And again, we share all of the links and all of this stuff. There's no editing that happens here, other than sometimes we edit the name of the person who is speaking because I'm not going to say I'm Alex and Wendy's not going to say that she's Sam. The but it's kind of interesting. It's almost like it's almost like it was trying too hard and ultimately created its own hallucination because it was trying too hard and then didn't
Right.
really deliver. Kind of forced the compliance piece in here. So I'd
Yeah.
say that's one of those ones that's kind of a little bit of a throwaway type story, at least in this context.
Yeah, I guess if you're if you're really interested, you could go read about it. But
Yeah.
um
And
yeah.
you can read about it in the Slack channel. So we've got links there. If you want to go and join us on Slack, head to livewithbrentandmike.com and hook up with us there. So here we are, authoring tools.
Oh, yay. Finally, Articulate Storyline 360 has released its new AI assistant and integrated accessibility checker.
I love this. The AI assistant helps you build interactions faster, and the accessibility checker makes sure no learner is left behind. It's efficiency plus empathy.
It also means that the software will now officially judge your design choices. If you try to make a drag and drop interaction that isn't keyboard accessible, the AI assistant should, in a perfect world, just lock your keyboard and play a sad trombone sound. or a
There we go.
violin.
There we go. And that is for both Craig and Brent because they love the music stuff in the background. It is a bold new world for IDs. No more excuses for bad UX.
Yeah, I need to see it because they've only integrated into Storyline, and we all know, right? If you've been around the block for a while, Articulate has Storyline and Rise. Those are its two, um, strongholds. But I'm looking through this. Build it in AI tools to help speed up development. With just a prompt, you can generate images, instructional quizzes, text, and even scene descriptions. So, that will help writers block and does help a lot more. You're going to start seeing that more when it comes to any kind of content authoring tool. That's going to become the new standard, and we've already started to see that shift. Uh, so it just seems like, Articulate's finally catching up to the rest of the world and all of the other authoring tools that already have that.
And I'm just dropping a couple of links in here
Yeah.
as I go
The
through.
accessibility checker is interesting.
Yeah.
Helps create designs that are more inclusive. It automatically scans for WCAG compliance issues like missing alt text, poor contrast, and improper focus order, and provides practical in product suggestions to fix them. And I think that's great. There's an example too. Yeah, you put that in there on how to check that. There's the tool itself and what it looks like. It's WCAG. Not all areas have to have WCAG criteria, right? So, yes, it's good, but your company may not have to have
So what is WTAG?
that. Sorry. Web content accessibility guidelines. So,
Okay.
even though we want everyone to have that, right? I mean, we want everything to be accessible. Your business may or may not actually worry too much about it because maybe it's only for internals. You already have things in your background, right? Your systems are already set up to be a certain way. Maybe your templates are already set up that way. So maybe a lot of people don't actually think about it from that perspective because it's already done for them in wireframes and, brand type things. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The article that the news feed picked up here is really a promotional piece by a company called beonlinelearning.com. It's their blog post that highlights why Articulate Storyline remains the top e-learning authoring tool today. And I know a lot of people are really going to be surprised that they just happen to be the only Articulate Storyline certified training provider for the space that they operate in. So
oh, look at
shocking.
that. Look at that.
And so it just
Yeah.
it's when you go through and you read through, I think this is
Mhm.
kind of one of the things I'm working on helping reinforce across folks. And I'm going to go back to the brain version of this. Let's use our brains the way that when we engage in content. Don't cherry pick things to say, hey, this is the thing that reinforces what I believe, and now I want to use it to help everybody else fall in line with my beliefs. Apply a little bit of critical thinking. And back
Mhm.
when I was a kid, one of the and I don't know that I mean, I had a lot of fun doing it. Like it was a blast. And I had friends who made fun of me when I did it. Um, the I did Model United Nations when I was in both junior high and high school. And one of the things you
And
had
what
to
is
do,
that? What
it's
is that?
you're it's like a digital twin, not a real twin, but like a reality twin of the United Nations, where kids are kids because I mean you're under 18. At least I was in junior high and high school. The are take the position of a specific country and represent that country's perspective on a topic that's happening in the world in the same way that things would be debated in when the United Nations would come together. And it is a really powerful exercise to debate or support or stand behind something that you don't agree with, but you've got to play the role of agreeing with it because that's you're representing that country, you're representing
Mm.
that perspective. So one of the things that really helped me do is get better on the critical thinking side of things, like not taking things for not taking things for what's on the tin, other than um, sometimes, especially when biases come in, where I've had this confirmation bias and I want this thing to be true, I'll look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's good. Okay, it's going to reinforce this thing that is that is my perspective or whatever. And
Yeah.
so Model United Nations would be kind of like academic decathlon, just a different version of it. Like they're just
Okay.
different iterations of these things that are out there where you can create space for critical and creative thinking, and which requires research and then requires assessment. So you gather data, you assess the data, you make some inferences or idea assumptions, a hypothesis around what you want to test. You go out and test it, and then you regather data, assess the data, and determine did your it align with your hypothesis or not. We can actually apply the scientific method to a lot of things.
A
it's
lot of things.
it's
Yes.
so it just it's so when you look at stuff like this, like the feedback where Be Online is promoted here, which is good for them that they're showing up inside the LLM in a recent article which was posted earlier this month, tied to promoting an event that they held on the 17th. Just read beyond the headline and kind of go a little bit deeper into it and say, okay, well, hey, how can I apply this? What do I
Yeah.
agree with? What do I not agree with? What would I change? Those kind of things.
Yeah, the WCAG, I think a lot of people may not truly think about, right? Because their main focus is the four categories that they have the acronym for, which is POUR: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust.
Okay.
So, and then that's what they're basing it off of, and then they have a scale, an A, a double A, and a triple A level, right? Of making sure that no matter if you're reading it or using a screen reader, or if you can see it, right, the system itself can, and people can navigate within whatever you've created. Some people focus on that more than others, right? Y'all talked about it a little bit yesterday, between, learning types, right?
Yep.
But making that into today's world, which I look at it from a UDL perspective, I've mentioned before, right? Universal design for learning. And it's it's just that ability to make sure that when you set up a course, can anybody who's first time into this come in and navigate through your course? And or did you hide the next button, right, kind of mentality.
Right.
And then can a system or an agent or HTML read the background code, so that way if a reader needs to actually read through it, it can decipher the next button is here, right, and
Mm.
call that out for someone.
Okay.
So that's what WCAG really is making sure that the interface itself is accessible, but an operable from a defined next or mouse click or tab or space bar, right?
Yep.
And I think a lot of us in design might take that for granted a lot of times, that we trust our tools, we trust our technology to already be set up that way. And so you don't really think about all that stuff that goes on in the background.
Yeah.
And especially, like I said, if you have wireframes and everything else that your business has set up, you don't think about that. You get in, you create, go out for your reviews and you publish. So it's a good, level set to make sure that you're not leaving anyone behind because they can't navigate.
Awesome. The it's one of the things that jumps out at me as you went through that is is there's a reason why pilots have checklists, and
Mhm.
going through and doing a quick check can help avoid a disaster, whether it's in that context or it's in other contexts. And the same thing will happen I guess, or I understand that happens in hospitals. There's a book out there called The Checklist Manifesto, which is a super interesting read around the importance and value of checklists. And for me, when I miss things, I typically can go back in time and say, "Ooh, here's what I did. I skipped this thing." Having the checklist to go through, where you can quickly kind of use it as a quick accountability check for yourself, can be super
Yeah.
valuable. And here's an example of where that potentially fits.
And a lot of people, especially in corporate, and I always go back to corporate because, they usually have like a QA checklist or some kind of checklist that you go through before you get SME reviews, before you get QA reviews,
Yeah.
right? And, some of that might be in there already. Or again, it's back to the wireframes, right? It's already built in. Here is
Right.
your slide on how to navigate this system. It is in every single course you create. You don't even think about it because it's already embedded.
Yep.
So take an extra look, take some extra time to make sure that if this was the first time you ever saw this course, would you be able to navigate it? Now, do I think that that is as important as it used to be? Probably not. Not when
Mm,
you can hand a 6-year old or an 8-year old, a phone or a course and say, here, go take this. And they can do it intuitively.
yeah.
Right. So, um, we got that shift, right? In using electronics and using technology to
Yeah.
learn from. So, most is probably not as bad as it used to be, if you will.
Yeah, imagine if you had
you
to
know,
put together a list of instructions on what to do next, like turn the page of a book. Like, at the end.
give a book to a kid. I have a kid, and I give her a book, and she wants to crinkle the page right like this, and I'm like, hold on, stop. Let me show you how to turn the page of a book without killing my book. Um, Daddy gets on to her too, like, whoa, 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 don't mess up mom's book, because she grabbed one of my fancy, very fancy fantasy books off the shelf and wanted to read it. I was like, wait a second, that book cost $60. Hold on. It's got, pretty edges and, a cool cover and illustrations. Let me show you how to turn the page of a book.
Your version of the encyclopedias that were up there, like instead of where you had to crawl up on top of the desk to get to, and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah,
Yes. I only have one, just one.
every
That was
version.
enough for me. Everything else is Kindle, just one.
That's
Everything else
awesome.
is research based, right? Learning based. But, I have a little over 8 bookcases in my house. So,
Wow. Yeah.
um,
In our house, it'll the order that things typically go is I'll pick a book up on Audible, and then if I want to annotate it or add in notes, or
mhm,
get some, you go a bit deeper into listening
mhm.
mode, and want things to kind of persist, then I'll pick it up on Kindle. So it'll be Audible, then
Yeah.
it'll go to Kindle. So like there's a filtering mechanism. The filtering is it's you go through, if it passes the Audible test, then it moves into then it maybe moves into Kindle. And if it's one that I want other members of my family to read, then a paperback version of that, or basically a
Hmm.
paper version of that book shows up at the house, and then it just sits on the kitchen island up into the point where somebody's just like, okay, why is this here? What do you want me to read? But that's the order, because it just that's the it that'll get people to kind of lean on Craig here a little bit. Their learning style, their learning preference.
Hmm.
That's how they want to consume the content. I love listening to things on Audible because I can go back in and re-listen, and I can think while I'm listening and just kind of let my kind of subconscious go while I'm doing that piece. And I can do other things, like, again, walk the golf course
Yes.
or walk the neighborhood or whatever. Um, and go into some really deep subjects. But that's the kind of the
Yeah.
filter. So yeah, it's Audible. Then the next level is it makes it onto the Kindle, and then the next level on that, then it makes it it's there's a paper version in the house. Um,
I can kind of relate. So I just went to the concept of buying both the Audible and the book just at the
mm,
same time. And one of the things I'll give credit to Amazon for here is I'll be reading, right? So maybe I don't want to listen or my headset died or
yeah,
whatever the case is.
right.
And so I'll read it and then the next morning I'll be like, "Oh no, it's time to listen," right? I'm walking around the house, get the kid
Right.
ready or cook a breakfast, whatever. And when I click on the read it as well or go from read to Audible,
Yeah,
it catches up to where I'm at.
that's awesome.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
Now going back, that's okay.
yeah,
But you have to watch out for your, which application you have it on. So I'll listen to it on the Kindle because
yeah.
the one I have you can do audio from, right, with
Cool. Yep.
Bluetooth.
Yeah,
And then I went back to the phone.
yeah.
Now, as far as getting someone else to read it, I will go to bed, lay in bed, and turn that baby on speaker. And so he has no choice but to listen to it.
It's awesome.
And then he'll ask me questions and we can talk about it.
There you go. there's a one of the best books I've read recently, and it's one of those where same kind of thing. It's the Audible, the Kindle version, and the paper version sitting on our kitchen table. Is the greatest sentence ever written, which is a
Mm,
Walter Isaacson book on the Declaration of Independence,
independence.
specifically on the
Mm.
preamble of the Declaration of Independence. And it is absolutely phenomenal. If you're looking for a book to pick up and read and listen to how people debate, people that you've read about in history would debate language and your word choice. And one of the things that jumped out at me is I had always thought it was inalienable rights, not unalienable rights. And when you go back through in the written version, there's a version where it was unalienable, and then the more traditional inalienable, and then there's a whole discussion around why which word was chosen in which context and why that continues to go on, and actually the word I don't want to spoil all of this, like it's good to go in and get into the detail if you want to pick it up, but why one of those words was chosen to be presented at the Jefferson Memorial and the other one wasn't. So, super interesting book. The greatest sentence ever
Yeah.
written, Walter Isaacson.
Focuses on the second sentence of the Declaration of Independence, which, by the way, is a 35-word sentence. So if you've never read the second sentence of the Declaration of Independence, just Google that
There you
too.
go. Awesome. All right, let's bring this thing home. So that is our show for today. Go out there, be human. Maybe let your AI assistant take a nap.
And for the love of all that is holy, check your alt text. We're watching.
Wendy, thanks for doing that. What'd you think?
I go back and forth. I kind of miss the SNL version that we started with occasionally. This still has that in there, I
Yeah,
think, but I do kind of miss the SNL more version. These are kind of short. Is this Grok or is this Gemini?
this was Gemini, and
Okay.
I think we're I think Brent is pulling more from I think um Brent pulls more from Claude these days than than any of the other tools, but I'm not sure. We'll ask him on Monday when he's back.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and it's there's certain language. So what I did is I just took one of the original prompts, and I'm trying to find the specific one, but there's a how does it go? It is all right. Your goal: produce a complete broadcast script and visual assets for a Monday morning show based on the absolute latest industry news. Your process trigger with run the show.
Mm.
Um, the Oh yeah. Each story should also explain why the story is important to the learning and development professional community. If story one is not related to learning and development, just make up something hilarious about how it might relate somehow. So that's where the hilarious piece
Mhm.
comes in, and it does not. So from a tone standpoint, it's hilarious, energetic, authoritative, like a Saturday Night Live news skit. So it still has some of those kind of things in, but it just is going to interpret pieces. Now, the other thing I've asked Brent to do is
Mhm.
limit my stuff to no more than 2 syllables, and then what I find is it will limit the thing to when he does it or when it pops in. There'll be things that are no more than 2 syllables, but they will be 2 syllable words that are very very hard to pronounce. So
It's overcomplicating it.
it's awesome. It's like, like speak like a human, the AI agent. But yeah, so that one and yesterday's one specifically were in Gemini.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like it. It's
Yeah.
different, right? I think it does because of the humor that's involved, maybe a little bit. It does make you think about it a little bit more,
Yeah.
but you really need the links to the context,
Yeah.
right? To really deep dive. So they're truly high level hits rather than true discussions. And before, I think we had a little bit more detail so that way we could dive in without actually pulling up the article.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that may be a timing thing too now, right? If you get too in the weeds, you may not have enough time.
And, we've kind of gone back and forth on those too, and I think that's where a little bit of the testing too is going to be important. But that's the
Mm.
I agree. Like this one, it felt like to me today specifically, and I've not noticed it as much before, but it really tried to stick into that arc of all of the news stories kind of connecting to something related to housing and mortgage and finance, that kind of a thing. Like it just seemed like each one that we were getting into were kind of had part of that thread and almost felt a little bit too forced.
Mhm. Yeah, and then when you look at something back from a while back, right, rather than the last couple days or
Yeah.
72 hours even, it's like, okay, that's really forced, right? You
Yeah.
pulled something else to tie them all together. That's not what we asked you. We asked you to stay within this context,
Yep.
right? So science, but something within the last 3 days. It doesn't have to go back and relate to, agency or real estate or whatever the case is.
Yep.
So
All right. Well, thanks for
I like the
doing.
images though.
Yeah, well, and so that's the other thing that is kind of I don't know, it might be the way that I'm using Gemini or how I've got things is set up, but the only way I could get to the images was to drop each of the requests into different. I had to break the stories into each of the 4 or 5 ones that we had in here rather than just have it go through and do it. And my expectation, I mean, really what I want this thing to do, or I would expect it to do if I was, in this kind of context, is I would like to hit the prompt and then have it return all of the results. Hallucinations
Mhm.
or not. Like I'm okay with the hallucinations and those can be kind of funny as you go through it. And the reason why I'm okay with the hallucinations is we're having fun with this. Like this is about how can you help people use a tool, engage with the tool, iterate, and figure out more what you want to do next inside the tool. This isn't doing it right now in that I had to go in and drop the images in. One of the things that's really cool, I'm going to pull this one up and then we'll wrap up. This L&D morning brief headlines image is let me pull this up just like this recently. All right. So we'll move this like this. So that's the thumbnail for today, which is much better than the thumbnail yesterday and actually looks pretty close to the thumbnails that Brent was creating.
Mhm.
And so um, I think this is kind of, I think it's pretty cool that the tool is able to do this kind of stuff quickly. The next
Mhm.
thing I would do is I'd say I probably would the way I'd probably update the prompt when it does the thumbnail here is to take each of those 5 images and create them as separate images that could be used to promote during the show or something to that effect. But I think this to me is awesome because it's not the old guys yelling at clouds stuff. It's a contextual thumbnail that says this is what we got into. So that's there's good, there's bad,
I
there's
do like this.
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
Yeah, conceptually. So it's a very quick, brief overview of what to expect, right?
Mhm.
I was talking about. And it also is a good, even for this ending, right? Like, oh, yeah, maybe I will go look at more neuroscience and adult learning. Maybe we didn't get into that enough, and I'd like to see that. Or, you're right. I haven't looked at, accessibility really through Articulate because I just assume that they take care of it. So maybe I should go read that some more, right? And this just again helps with that recall. But from a interesting factor perspective, I prefer the other brain one that you had up
Yeah.
rather than this one.
Okay.
That's an aesthetic thing, right? I like the AI images. I think they're cool. I think they're pretty, right? However you want to put it. It's to me, none of this is quote unquote AI slop because it has a meaning and it ties it in, right? So, I think we get a little carried away sometimes on the perfectionist in us of, oh, it has to be perfect and it has to be this and it has to be that. No, it has to tie the story together,
Yeah.
right? Does it tie the story together? Does it take away from, your actual learning because that's a brain and not a AI brain? No. But it's a preference. It's not a I'm going to scrutinize every single, fold in this brain to tell you that that doesn't look like a real brain. Right.
Yep. Wendy, thank you
Mhm.
for doing this. This was awesome. Where would you like people to connect up with you if they'd like to continue the conversation?
LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, I am Dr. Wendy Kimbrell. You can find me there. Send me a message. Connect, and I'll be happy to talk more from there.
Awesome. Connect up with
And
Wendy.
Mike.
Share this show with other people. Let's continue to build this out. It's really cool to see more comments pop up into the stream and keep the conversation going, and then carry that over into the Slack channel where you can go back and forth with a bunch of people who are testing and iterating and trying to figure this whole thing out together. Which we all know this learning is more fun when you do it together. You get an experience and you get perspective. So share this with someone who might find it interesting. If you've got questions around it, head to livewithbrentandmike.com, subscribe there, and Brent and I will connect back up with you. We actually have an official email address now. I am not ready to share it. I'll share it next week when Brent is back, but we're becoming a little bit more professional as much as somebody is getting dragged into being more professional, kicking and screaming. So, anyhow, Wendy, have a great weekend. Thanks for doing this. We'll see everybody on again on Monday.
Thank you for having me, Mike.